Hello, welcome to another conversation. So today I asked God, since I came back from my little break, yesterday was my first video. Rather than pull cards like I have in the past, I asked God for a topic, a conversation that he'd like me to speak about, and just waited for a word to come, waited for a topic to come through. And today I've done the same. And today's word was disdain. And I looked up the word disdain just to be sure that I was getting it right. And the definition that I found, I'll record on my phone, so I'm not able to look on my phone right now. But if I remember correctly, the definition that I was given in the dictionary website that I looked at was someone or something that someone decides doesn't deserve their respect or consideration. So when the word disdain first came into my mind, when I asked God what he'd like me to speak about today, straight away I thought of the state of this world and how we have misplaced disdain for things that we really shouldn't. The whole divide and rule tactic that's used, that's basically where the systems that are in place by the people that rule this world kind of hijack our disdain meter, let's just call it, so that we end up hating things. And even though disdain doesn't mean hate, the hatred that we feel towards each other, towards our fellow human beings, is the very disdain that God wants me to speak about today. And also speak about the flip side of that, and how we should better place our lack of respect and lack of consideration. Maybe not lack of respect, but maybe we should take back our respect and take back our consideration from certain things that we actually consider and respect these days. Way too much trust is put on the ruling factors within this world. Way too much respect and consideration are just given away freely to people who show time and time again that they actually are super untrustworthy people. If we was to take the actions that we see from the leaders of this world, and we imagine that being somebody that we're choosing to have a relationship with doing those kind of behaviors, we'd very quickly learn that we shouldn't be around that person. We very quickly learn that that person isn't for us and they can't be trusted. Unless that person was really good at gaslighting and they kind of gaslit you into feeling like it was your fault, or feeling like it was the fault of somebody else, and therefore taking the blame away from them, but also taking the spotlight away from the behaviors that are glaringly obvious in that moment. And some people are professionals at doing this, you know, not literally professionals, but they are experts at doing these kind of things. There are especially narcissists. It's like I don't know if narcissists are born or if narcissists are made. I suppose both. I suppose there's people who, narcissism is such a broad term for a list of behaviors. So narcissist itself isn't a broad term, but the list of behaviors that come underneath the umbrella of narcissism is. But anyway, gaslighting is a very proficient tool used by those who abuse their positions in our lives, and whether that be on a personal level or whether that be on a professional level, it's done a lot in today's modern world. And also the word gets thrown around a little bit too easily these days. There's a lot of people who come out of a relationship and call their partners, their ex-partners, narcissists. And a lot of the time, those very people aren't willing to look at themselves and look at their own behaviors, and it's easier to call the other person a narcissist rather than take responsibility for any part they may have played in the situation. And that's not to say everybody that calls their ex a narcissist is wrong, but it is thrown around cheaply these days. Similarly, the word gaslighting is thrown around cheaply these days. But it's a very, very real and very present part of our day-to-day lives. And it's one of the favourite tools of the ruling class of this world. Not so much the ruling class, but the ruling systems. Because there's many levels of the ruling class who probably don't even understand the positions that they've got. They just look down on humanity and think that their part in that class is just that, to look down on others and to sit in their seat of privilege. And I suppose it's not really those people who are doing the gaslighting. It's more rather than the ruling class, the ruling systems, like I said. So these ruling systems and these strategies that the strategists within the ruling ranks use are that of gaslighting, are that of making mankind as a whole really question their reality and question themselves within that reality, and therefore create the perfect breeding ground for misdirection and misunderstanding and misplaced blame. And it's that very system right there, that ruling system that separates mankind from each other, separates humankind from loving our neighbor, that needs to one, be understood, and then once it's understood, be held in the place that it deserves to be held, in relation to the effects that it has on our lives as humankind. And there's no other way to think about those things than to have a feeling of disdain towards it. You know, let me use an analogy of a family living in a home. They've got their family home. You know, let's just say there's 3-4 generations living in this house. So you've got grandma, mum and dad, children who have grown into adults, and they've had their own children, let's just say. Now, that's a rare occurrence in today's day and age. But going back a few hundred years, this was the norm. So let's go back into those times, or let's bring it modern times. Let's not separate ourselves too much from this analogy. So There's a family, 4 generations, all living in the same household. It's a rare occurrence in today's world, but this family have managed to be able to do that because of the love and respect that they all have for each other. And this family home is super harmonious. Everybody gets on with everybody. It's a super respectful place. The grandmother loves spending time with the grandchildren. The grandchildren have the utmost respect for the grandparents and the parents, and they all appreciate each other. The children appreciate the hard work that their parents have done. The children appreciate the hard work that their grandparents did. And they all honor each other. They all honor each other's individuality, and they all honor each other's space. And through that honor, respect, and love, that unconditional love that they all have for each other, the harmony within that household is blissful, super blissful. So the idea of them not living as a family would seem absolutely alien to them. Now imagine in this blissful home of perfection, somebody enters into this home. So who could this person be? So Granddad unfortunately passed away over a decade ago, and Grandma has met a new man through the encouragement of her own children, because they would like to see her share her time with somebody before she goes. They don't want her to miss out on that feeling of intimate love. Not sexual, but intimate. You know, that close bond that two people have that you can only get through somebody outside of your family. You know, it's a different kind of love to that love of your family. There's only so much. Anyway, so in this analogy, this new man that comes in, at first he seems like a lovely guy, and then in time Nan starts to change, and the changes that are happening in Nan are causing rifts within the family. And there's only one place that these behaviors could be coming from. Ever since she got into this new relationship, that's the only new thing that's been introduced into the family that's spoiling the harmony within their family. And it's took the whole family a long period of time to even figure it out. They just at first maybe thought Nan was being a bit senile or whatever, you know, going through the late stages of the menopause. I don't know, but eventually they realised that this man has something to do with it. Now, little did they know that behind the scenes, this man was sowing seeds of doubt into Nan's head, feeding seeds into her brain that her children didn't respect her, and her children were plotting against her, and they only wanted her to get with this man so that they could eventually kick her out of the house. You know, enter whatever lie you want to enter in that situation. I've gone way off track here, but I'm going with it. So in this man entering into the life and the lies that he's sowed into the thought space of Grandma, there's now major risks within the family. And Grandma's behavior and Grandma's belief in these seeds that were sowed into her mind has sprouted they've sprouted. They're no longer just seeds of doubt. They're actually they've got a life of their own. And the way that Nan's arguing these points home is really solidifying the distance. It's really solidifying this rift that's happening between the family, to a point where it almost seems impossible to carry on, and it definitely seems impossible to go back to the way things were with this positive, loving, blissful existence that you all had together. So excuse the rubbish analogy there, but that boyfriend was the ruling class. Not the ruling class, the ruling system that's in place to really sow seeds of doubt between the human family. Sow seeds of doubt between the connections that we all would naturally have had those seeds not been planted in the first place. There's so much misplaced disdain within the human race that war seems to be justified. You know, not speaking to our family seem to be justified. And don't get me wrong, there are certain behaviours that people have done that were well justified to not have those people in our lives. But the fact that those people even did them behaviours in the first place, that's part of this distance between us. They would have never have done those behaviours had they lived in this blissful family unit. These systems of separation have taught a lot of the behaviors that we see in today's world. You know, when we see families hardly making it past 2-3 years after a baby is introduced into the world, you know, all the single mothers and single fathers that there are in the world and in society, these things aren't an accident. I remember many years ago, and I remember when it happened as well. So in the UK, I remember many years ago when the benefit system, which is like you know, governmental support, governmental financial support, the benefit system within the UK, I remember I must have been maybe about 14, 15, somewhere around there. And I remember when I seen on the news that they was offering mums more money if they were single mums. And I understood at that time that that's just a kind of incentive that they was throwing out there to make mums, to convince mums that they didn't need the dad around. And not only that, to convince mums to not only think that they don't need the dad around, but also not have the dad around, because without him they would earn more money, if that makes sense. And then I've seen that kind of thought process be encouraged all around the world. And then we fast forward to society today, and we live in the situation that we live in, with loads of single mums, loads of single dads. The world as we know it not looking anything like it used to. And those little changes that are put in place by these systems of divination, these systems of sowing seeds of mistrust within society, are the reason to blame for the way society is today. It really breaks my heart to see people talk about the problems that are happening in the world, and in the same sentence blame it on not blame it on the government, but like kind of call the government out as though the government could fix these things. The government are part of the reason why these things are happening in the first place. You know, the changes that I just mentioned there were government enforced changes. It's the government who decides to benefit fucking what's the word? You know, the rules for how benefit should be claimed. And in the case that I just spoke about there, that single mums would get more money, would get more support from the government. At the time that this happened, normal family life was normal. Of course you would have single mums. Of course, there's, you know, in them days, sex was still rampant. So there was a lot of people having babies that weren't actually in relationships, and those people, unfortunately, I wouldn't even say the majority of them went on to become single mums, but a lot of them went on to become single mums. So there was single mums in the world, but it looked nothing like it does now. The family unit had a reason to add an incentive, and we shouldn't really be incentivized to be decent people and keep our families together, but in being incentivized within our own minds to keep our family together, because it was the safest thing to do. It was the most, you know, a family's main concern is being provided for and being taken care of in the sense of surviving. And in them days, a family's way of thinking, and rightfully so, was that our family has to stay together in order for our family to be able to survive to its best ability, which was true. And then I remember something else that they changed a few years later, or it may have been around the same time. I may have even been younger than 14, 15. But they also changed not being able to hit your children. And if you do, you can go to jail. Now, I understood that there was people that really beat their children, and of course they deserve to go to jail, and I'm sure they would have been able to go to jail before this stupid rule came out. But I understood that rule was taking away a family's ability to, discipline isn't the right word, to keep their family in a place of decency. That's not really the phrase or the words that I'm looking for there, but that does describe what I'm the idea that I'm trying to think of. So I knew that rule would take away the ability for a family to be able to keep their children in line to a certain degree. And again, that there doesn't really fit what I wanted to say, but that's what I wanted to say in other words. And in doing so, I understood at the time that society is going to get a lot worse now. Children are going to go on to be even more unruly, because there isn't any incentive for them to have respect. And at first it would be a lack of respect at home, but then of course it's going to be a lack of respect in the real world. And then fast forward to today, look at the way the world is now, all these stabbings that's going on. And I don't want people to get carried away and think that there weren't stabbings back in the day. There were, but there was more of a code around things. And that code was bred from the discipline that people were brought up around within their family units. You know, people would have a lot more respect. And the only people that would be getting involved in certain lifestyles would be people that agreed to get involved in them lifestyles, and then unfortunately maybe that they would end with someone being stabbed. But now you see so many innocent people being stabbed. You see so many innocent people being robbed of their, their hard-earned goods. And even though there were robberies back in the day, it wasn't so much of a widespread thing to see. And the criminal world would actually keep those people that were doing the things that were out of line to these innocent people. They would look at the lowest level, look down upon them, and at the highest level cut that shit out in its entirety. A lot of criminals wouldn't allow other criminals to act in them ways around them. I've gone off course there a little bit again, but basically the state of the world today, the way that we see children, the state of the world today, the way that we see children speak to their parents and speak to their teachers, and the lack of respect that we see the youth of today take part in this world with, is largely due to back in them days where the rules were changed and discipline was no longer allowed within the household. And it's wrong. But there's just 2 examples. There's hundreds of examples of how society has been molded into the way it is today. And all of these things that have molded society into the way that it is today have been put in place by this ruling set of people that bring their minds together and carefully, strategically plan how they can better control humanity. And that is where our disdain should be placed. At the systems that are in place that break down our family units, that break down the relationships between mankind. The systems that are in place that purposely agitate whole countries by making policies that are totally unfair to their own people. It's not, and right now I'm talking about asylum, because even though our hate is misplaced by hating the people that's coming in, the only reason they're coming in is because it's a carefully made strategy to agitate the people. And in allowing these people to come in and giving them more than they're giving their own people, and at the same time as giving them more than they're giving their own people, make their own people poorer, treat their own people with unfairness in so many different avenues. That in itself is going to cause fractions between the actual people themselves, let alone, it doesn't matter that there's fractions between the people that they're bringing in and the people of that country. That there doesn't matter to them. What matters to them is that the people of the country don't come together. And that's exactly what happens, because they let these people in, and then you get some people that now feel like it's okay to be openly racist to them people. You get people who don't fully understand what they're talking about and just hear a couple people say a couple things, start changing their opinions, and the people that have got a little bit more of a brain look at these people, and even though they're not being openly racist like the other set of people, they're still horrified at the change that they're seeing in little Tommy or whatever, and that there's causing fractions in family units, and then you got people who are socialist kind of people who want to see society do well, who want to stick up for those kind of people. And then you got the people on the sideline who haven't quite made their mind up yet, who's looking at all 3 sets of those people and feeling like they got to pick a side. And that's just the tip of the iceberg with that. There's so many different fractures that come about. There's so many different fractures that appear in the society of said country when these things happen. And then boom, perfect recipe to make sure that the people don't come together. And that's just one example. There's so many different examples. You've got, the different classes of people and how they play them off against each other. You've got the different political parties. You've got the different races, not just asylum seeker, the different races within a country. You've got the different genders. You've got different generations. There's so many different tools that they use to cause these fractures within society. And the majority of people just lap these ideals and these ideas up that are kind of force-fed to them, and willingly allow those fractures to take hold within life. That's where our disdain should be placed towards. Our disdain should be aimed at those tools and tactics that are used in order to separate us. Because that is the main tool and the main aim of the political landscape, to force into our lives, into our minds, into our belief systems, in order to control us in the way that they've controlled us, in order to control us in the way that they've done to make the world the way it is today. So when people are sat online like, oh, why don't the government do more? The government are doing what they want to do, and the world that we're facing is because the governments are acting as puppets to the people that have strategically decided the way that the world's going to run. And all it takes is for mankind to realise this. That's all it takes. For mankind to realise that and stop allowing the tactics that are used to rule our thought processes, rule our belief systems, and therefore make us into their puppets that are acting on their behalf, hating other people and hating this and hating that, hating this generation, hating that gender, hating these set of people that are running away from. Before anything gets better, it gets worse. So there's no easy fix. There is no easy fix, but recognizing it is a first step, and then changing our inner world is the second step, and that will do wonders in itself. Just a large amount of people changing the way that they think and believe life is, and changing the way they think and believe that society is ran by a good set of people that have got our best interests at heart. The more that people look within and change their belief system surrounding those things, the world will change very quickly. And even though it may look worse before it gets better, there will be instantaneous positive changes from just that alone. You know, that won't fix every single problem straight away, but in time, life will have no choice but to follow suit with what's happening within our minds and within our hearts in that scenario. And that is doing things for our children. If we just allow life to carry on the way it is, life is going to be bleak for our future generations. And I say that with a, you know, I know that that's not going to be the case. I know that that's not going to be the case. These messages are for wider society, not really even for the spiritual community, because the spiritual community, you know, by and large, are more privy to these things. These messages are more for the people in society who don't understand that their minds have been hijacked and that the very set of people that they've been putting down for decades and decades, calling them conspiracy theorists or woo-woo or whatever they fucking call people nowadays. They come up with new phrases all the time. These very people have been right all along. There's nothing that I've said that is conspiracy theorist-esque. It's all facts with how the world's ran. But we're led to believe that that's another example right there. The fact that people saying things like this would be labelled as conspiracy theorist rhetoric, let's just call it. And then they use the powers that be use their outlets of information to then attack these kind of people and belittle them and make fun of them and speak about them in a tone that really forms people's beliefs and thoughts and behaviours and perception of the person that they're attacking. And not only that person, the things that person's saying. They control how they think and feel about those kind of things and they launch such a savage attack against them people verbally that the people that lap this up end up becoming Agent Smiths and fighting on behalf of the very people who are enslaving humanity in this kind of way without them even being around or without them even benefiting from it in any way. If anything, the people that they're labelling with these horrible things are trying to benefit humanity as a whole, and then humanity as a whole, outside of like the spiritual communities and the truth communities and all them kind of things, humanity as a whole out there who label people conspiracy theorists, don't want to say certain things because they don't want to be called a conspiracy theorist, tell people they're woo-woo or whatever. Those people don't understand that the very people that they're attacking for no benefit of their own are the very people that, if they was to listen to them, would bring them freedom. And that's why those people are attacked and called these derogatory names. I'm kind of going off course a little bit, but the topic of conversation today was disdain. And that, I suppose that wasn't off course, because that is what God wanted me to talk about here. How disdain is misplaced. And these are all perfect examples for how mankind has been manipulated into misplacing their feelings of hatred and disrespect and lack of confidence in opinions towards the wrong place. And the very systems that they allow to form these opinions within their mind get off scot-free when they're the ones who's tearing mankind apart and tearing our world apart by the proceeds of those actions. So as an energy sending out into the world, wake up, my beautiful people. Wake up, my beautiful fellow beings walking this earth. I have enjoyed coming back and having these conversations, and it was a little bit of a struggle getting out today, but I made it, and I'm glad that I did, and I'll make it again tomorrow. Mwah.